Imagine for a moment the choices we make each day when it comes to the foods we place on our plates. For most of our lives, we are told to eat more fish because it's healthy. We've heard it from doctors, we've read it in magazines, and we've even seen it printed on labels in the grocery store. Fish is associated with lean protein, brain-boosting omega-3s, and heart protection. But here's the paradox. What we rarely stop to consider is that not all fish are created equal. In fact, for those of us over the age of 60, certain types of fish that once seemed harmless can actually work against us, introducing toxins into our bodies at a stage of life when we are least equipped to handle them. This is not just a nutritional discussion, it is a deeper reflection on the way aging changes our relationship with food. When we are younger, the body has a resilience that allows it to absorb, process, and even detoxify many of the environmental pollutants we come into contact with. But as the years pass, that resilience begins to wane. The liver, which is the body's detox powerhouse, doesn't metabolize toxins with the same efficiency. The kidneys, which filter impurities, become more delicate. Even the brain, that most precious organ, is more vulnerable to assaults from heavy metals like mercury, which can sneak in through the very fish we thought were protecting us. It's important to pause here and recognize that the risk isn't about a single meal or an occasional indulgence. The danger lies in the cumulative effect. Every bite of fish that carries mercury, industrial chemicals, or pesticide residues is a small deposit into a toxic bank account that, over time, can lead to a serious health withdrawal. And when you are 60 or older, that withdrawal can manifest as memory problems, fatigue, heart strain, or a decline in kidney function, conditions that are often chalked up to just aging, when in fact they may be, in part, preventable. Think about it like this. If you had a house that you wanted to preserve for decades, would you knowingly use materials that contained slow-acting corrosive substances even if they looked strong on the outside? Probably not. You would choose the safest, most durable materials because the goal is longevity. Our bodies, especially after 60, deserve that same consideration. The fish we choose either reinforce the foundation of our health or slowly erode it. Now, there's also a psychological element at play here. Many seniors fall into the trap of routine, eating the same foods they have always eaten simply because it's familiar. If you grew up with tuna sandwiches or enjoyed swordfish steaks on the grill, it may feel comforting to keep those traditions alive. But the mind must adapt with the body's changes. What nourished us at 40 may harm us at 70. Wisdom, after all, is the ability to adjust when the truth presents itself, even if it challenges old habits. And so, the real question becomes, what do we value more? The short-lived comfort of a meal we've always known, or the long-term vitality that allows us to continue living fully, traveling, engaging with family, and staying independent? The answer lies in awareness and in making informed choices. Recognizing that some fish are not just less healthy, but actively toxic after 60, gives us the power to protect ourselves. It allows us to rewrite the story we've been told about fish as universally beneficial and instead adopt a more discerning, nuanced view. It's also worth considering the philosophical angle. We live in a world where nature's balance has been disrupted. The oceans are no longer pristine. Industrial runoff, plastics, and pollutants seep into the waters and into the fish that swim there. To ignore this reality is to close our eyes to the interconnectedness of all things. By choosing wisely what we eat, we are not only protecting our own health, but also sending a signal about the kind of world we want to support. Food becomes both personal medicine and moral action. So, when I say that seniors must be cautious about certain fish, it is not a message of fear, but one of empowerment. It is a reminder that our choices matter even more with age, that the body we have at 60, 70, or 80 is not fragile but deserving of deep respect. By protecting it from hidden dangers, we give ourselves the best chance to enjoy the years ahead with strength and clarity. The truth is simple. The fish on your plate can either be a silent enemy or a trusted ally. For those of us who have lived long enough to appreciate the preciousness of time, the wiser path is to choose only what strengthens, only what supports, and only what allows us to live not just longer, but better. And so I leave you with this: every meal is a decision between erosion and renewal. The choice is yours. Which will you choose? When we begin to look closely at the choices that determine our health after 60, we realize that food is not neutral. It is either working with us or against us. Fish is a perfect example. For decades, it has been celebrated as a symbol of clean eating, yet when we peel back the layers, we discover that certain types of fish, though popular and widely consumed, may act like slow poisons rather than protective allies. And so it becomes critical to know not just which fish to embrace, but which to avoid completely, especially for those of us in our later years when the body's defenses are more fragile. Let's start with tuna. Tuna has long been the poster child for healthy eating. It's in salads, sandwiches, and even recommended on diet plans. But what is rarely mentioned is that tuna, especially albacore or beggai, is among the most mercury-laden fish in the ocean. Mercury is a neurotoxin, which means it doesn't just stress the body, it can directly attack the brain. For a younger person, the effects might be subtle or slow to appear. But for someone over 60, where cognitive function is already at greater risk, mercury exposure can hasten memory decline, cloud thinking, and even affect mood stability. A food that was once seen as brain food can, ironically, become brain fog. Then there is swordfish. Known for its meaty texture and bold flavor, swordfish has been prized on restaurant menus and in backyard grills. But beneath that appealing surface lies another danger. This fish is among the top offenders when it comes to mercury concentration. Swordfish, being a large predator, accumulates toxins from everything it consumes. Each bite is not simply protein, it's a cocktail of chemicals stored in its flesh over time. For seniors whose detox systems are slower, this can quietly add up to a heavy burden that the body struggles to release. The very strength of swordfish in the wild, the fact that it sits atop the food chain, becomes its greatest weakness on our plates. Shark, another predator, tells a similar story. Few people eat shark regularly, but when they do, perhaps in shark steaks or exotic dishes, they are often unaware of the risks. Shark meat contains high levels of mercury and other pollutants because of its longevity and predatory habits. For someone in their 60s or 70s, eating shark isn't a culinary adventure, it's a gamble with health. The thrill of trying something different can leave behind invisible scars on the nervous system and the heart. And finally, king mackerel. This one is especially tricky because mackerel in general has a reputation for being healthy, full of omega-3 fatty acids. But not all mackerel is created equal. King mackerel, unlike its smaller cousins such as Atlantic or Spanish mackerel, is saturated with mercury. It is yet another example of how generalizations about food can mislead us and why discernment becomes so necessary with age. Seniors who mistake king mackerel for a safe, heart-healthy choice may actually be undermining the very heart they are trying to protect. When we consider these four, tuna, swordfish, shark, and king mackerel, a pattern emerges. They are large, long-lived fish, predators that accumulate toxins over time. And that's the point worth reflecting on. Nature has designed a food chain where energy moves upward, but so do poisons. By the time these toxins reach the fish that sit at the top, the concentration is magnified many times over. Eating these fish is, in a way, like consuming the pollution of the entire ocean condensed into one serving. The philosophical lesson here is profound. Life is cumulative. Just as toxins accumulate in these predators, so do our choices accumulate in our bodies. One meal does not define us, but a lifetime of choices does. The fish we avoid today is not just about dodging a single exposure, it's about breaking the chain of accumulation that could otherwise rob us of clarity, energy, and years of independence. For seniors, this is more than a nutritional adjustment. It is a recognition that wisdom means discerning not only what to add, but what to subtract. There is strength in saying no. Choosing not to eat tuna, swordfish, shark, or king mackerel is not a deprivation. It is an affirmation of life, of valuing each remaining year with greater clarity and strength. And so I leave you with this thought: the measure of wisdom is not in holding on to old habits, but in knowing when to let them go. By turning away from the toxic four, you are not just avoiding harm, you are actively choosing vitality. Let every decision at the table be a step toward a sharper mind, a stronger heart, and a life that reflects the wisdom you've earned. One of the most overlooked truths about aging is that the body does not respond to food in the same way it did decades earlier. What you could once eat with ease in your 30s or 40s may no longer serve you well in your 60s and 70s. This is not a punishment from nature, it is a reflection of how the body evolves over time. With each passing decade, systems that once worked quickly and efficiently begin to slow. And when it comes to fish, especially those carrying toxins, this change in the body's capacity makes all the difference. Think for a moment about the liver. When you are young, the liver is a tireless workhorse, constantly breaking down toxins, filtering the blood, and processing nutrients. But as you age, the liver loses some of that efficiency. The same chemical that would have been flushed out of your system in a few hours may now linger longer, circulating in your blood and finding its way into sensitive tissues. It is not that the liver stops working. It simply works more slowly, more delicately. And this means that anything harmful has more time to leave its mark. The kidneys tell a similar story. These two remarkable organs filter gallons of blood every single day, clearing away waste products and balancing minerals that keep the body's system stable. But by the time you are 60, your kidneys have been at work for over 2 billion cycles of filtration. They have endured decades of life's exposures, medications, foods, environmental chemicals, and like any finely tuned machine, they become more vulnerable to strain. Introducing mercury or other toxins from fish into this system is like pouring sand into gears that are already worn. The machinery still turns, but not without greater risk of breakdown. Then there is the brain, perhaps the organ most sacred to us as we age. Memory, focus, the clarity, these are the qualities we want to hold on to, the treasures of a life well lived. Yet the brain, too, becomes more susceptible with time. The blood-brain barrier, which functions like a security gate keeping harmful substances out, becomes less robust with age. What might once have been blocked can now find its way in. And mercury, the silent threat in certain fish, has a particular affinity for brain tissue. It accumulates in neurons, interfering with the delicate signaling that underpins thought, memory, and even mood. For someone over 60, that means a higher risk of fog, forgetfulness, or anxiety, even when the cause seems invisible. We must also recognize that inflammation plays a larger role in aging. In youth, the body responds to an irritant or injury with a burst of inflammation that resolves quickly. But as we age, inflammation tends to linger. It becomes chronic, simmering quietly in the background. And what does mercury or chemical exposure from fish do? It fuels that fire. It keeps the embers of inflammation alive, further straining the heart, the blood vessels, the joints. Suddenly, what looks like arthritis or heart disease or cognitive decline is not simply getting older, but the result of a body carrying more than it should. But there is also a psychological dimension here that is worth exploring. Many people over 60 assume that decline is inevitable, that there is nothing to be done but accept it. This mindset is one of the greatest risks of all, because when you believe decline is your only future, you lower your defenses, you make choices without care. You eat the tuna steak because, why not? You buy the swordfish because life is short. But in reality, these choices make life shorter, not fuller. The truth is, much of what we call aging is actually a reflection of how we've treated the body over time. And in the later decades of life, the body speaks more clearly, more honestly. It no longer hides the consequences of what we consume. That honesty, though, is also a gift, because it means every wise choice you make now can have an immediate and profound effect. Avoiding the toxic fish is not simply a long-term insurance policy. It is a way to feel more energy, clearer thinking, steadier mood, and stronger vitality today. Even small adjustments can bring noticeable change, because the body, while more vulnerable, is also remarkably responsive when given the chance. So when we say seniors are more vulnerable, it is not meant as a warning to live in fear. It is meant as a reminder of how precious this stage of life is and how much more carefully we must guard it. The vulnerability is real, But it is also an opportunity. It is a call to live with greater awareness, to protect what is fragile, and to invest in choices that will allow the years ahead to be lived with dignity and strength. The reality is simple: after 60, the body does not forgive as easily, but it rewards as generously. Protect it from harm, and it will repay you with clarity, resilience, and energy. Neglect it, and it will remind you of that neglect at every turn. The decision rests with you. And so, I leave you with this: aging does not make us powerless. It makes us responsible. The more vulnerable the body becomes, the more sacred every choice becomes. Treat those choices as if your future depends on them, because it does. If we have spoken about the dangers, we must also speak about the possibilities, because it would be incomplete, even discouraging, to only talk about what not to eat. The truth is that nature, in its generosity, has given us foods that act as medicine, fish that do not poison the body but instead renew it, protect it, and strengthen it. And for those of us over 60, when vitality must be safeguarded like a precious resource, these fish become more than meals. They become allies in longevity, daily partners in the pursuit of health. Let us begin with salmon. Few foods have earned such consistent praise across cultures and scientific studies. Wild-caught salmon is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, the kind that soothe inflammation, nourish the heart, and protect the brain. These fatty acids are not just nutrients, they are building blocks for resilience. They weave themselves into the membranes of brain cells, making communication sharper, memory stronger, and mood steadier. For a senior, this is not an abstract promise. It is the difference between struggling to remember a conversation and recalling it with ease, between waking up sluggish and starting the day with clarity. Then there is sardines. Often overlooked because of their small size or humble appearance, sardines may be one of the most powerful foods available to us. They are packed not only with omega-3s, but also with calcium and vitamin D, nutrients that fortify the bones and muscles. At an age where fractures and weakness can threaten independence, sardines offer reinforcement from within. And because they are small, low on the food chain, they carry almost none of the toxins that plague larger fish. In other words, they provide the benefit without the burden. What a beautiful metaphor! Strength does not always come from size, but from purity. Next, consider trout, particularly rainbow trout. Mild in flavor yet rich in nutrients, trout provides a clean source of protein alongside healthy fats. It has the remarkable ability to support circulation, improving blood flow to the heart and brain. This matters more than ever in later years, when blockages, stiffness, or poor circulation can steal away vitality. Eating trout is like keeping the rivers of the body flowing freely, allowing energy and oxygen to reach every corner of your being. And finally, anchovies. Like sardines, they are small, pure, and nutrient-dense. But they carry a special gift: they are abundant in both omega-3s and trace minerals that support cellular repair. For seniors, anchovies offer quiet but profound benefits. They help regulate cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and keep the brain sharp. They may not command attention on a dinner plate, but they command respect within the body. Sometimes wisdom comes in small packages, and anchovies embody that truth. Now, imagine a diet that replaces the toxic 4 with these protective 4. Instead of mercury-laden tuna, you have sardines, rich in calcium and safe for the brain. Instead of swordfish, you have salmon, abundant with omega-3s and clean protein. Instead of shark, you have anchovies, humble but mighty in their ability to protect the heart. And instead of king mackerel, you have trout, keeping the circulation open and strong. It is a shift not only in what you eat, but in the way you see food itself, not as a risk, but as a daily medicine, a quiet act of self-preservation. There is also a deeper lesson here, one that extends beyond nutrition. These protective fish remind us that life, especially in later years, is not about grand gestures but about consistency. It is the daily, quiet decisions. The choice to eat salmon instead of steak, the willingness to enjoy sardines instead of processed meats, that add up to years of energy and clarity. Health is rarely built on one dramatic moment. It is built on repetition, on patience, on honoring the body with steady, nurturing care. Philosophically, there is something poetic about this. The large predatory fish, The ones that are flashy, impressive, commanding, are the ones filled with toxins. But the smaller, humbler fish, the sardines, the anchovies, are the ones that protect and heal. There is wisdom in that contrast. Perhaps it is a reminder that in the later chapters of life, strength is not found in dominance or size, but in purity, humility, and balance. Nature is offering us a lesson if we are willing to see it. For seniors, adopting these protective four is not simply about avoiding disease. It is about choosing a quality of life. It is about ensuring that the years ahead are not just long but vibrant. It is about being able to walk with confidence, to think with clarity, to laugh with energy, and to remain present for the people who matter most. And so the choice is before you. 4 fish to avoid, 4 fish to embrace. It is not a complicated prescription, but it is a profound one. Each meal is an opportunity to poison or to protect, to erode or to strengthen. I leave you with this: life after 60 is not about what you lose, but about what you choose. Choose the protective four, and you are not simply eating fish, you are feeding your future. Science has always given us a way to look beneath the surface, to see not only what is visible, but what is hidden in the intricate machinery of the human body. When we speak of the right fish, the protective four, we are not simply repeating old wisdom or clinging to tradition. We are drawing upon decades of research, countless studies, and undeniable evidence that points to one conclusion: the right fish can transform the trajectory of health, especially after 60. The body at this stage craves support, and science shows us that these foods deliver it in ways that are both measurable and deeply meaningful. Take the brain, for example. One of the most consistent findings in nutritional neuroscience is that omega-3 fatty acids, abundant in salmon, sardines, anchovies, and trout, are essential for cognitive health. These fatty acids are literally part of the brain's structure. They make up the membranes of neurons, allowing them to communicate with speed and precision. In seniors whose risk of dementia and memory decline increases each year, omega-3s act like armor. Studies have shown that regular consumption of these fish is associated with lower rates of Alzheimer's disease, slower cognitive decline, and even improved mood. Science tells us that it is not just about preventing disease, but about enhancing daily life, remembering names more easily, concentrating more deeply, and maintaining emotional steadiness. Then we turn to the heart, that tireless organ that has beaten billions of times by the age of 60. Heart disease remains the #1 killer worldwide, but here too, fish play a remarkable role. Clinical trials have shown that seniors who eat omega-3 rich fish at least twice a week have lower rates of heart attack and stroke. Why? Because these nutrients lower triglycerides, stabilize heart rhythms, and reduce inflammation in the blood vessels. The science is clear. The protective four are not just meals, they are medicine for the heart. Imagine arteries that stay supple instead of stiff, a heart that beats steadily instead of erratically. This is not the promise of a pill, it is the gift of food chosen wisely. And what about inflammation, that quiet saboteur of aging? Modern research has revealed that chronic inflammation underlies almost every age-related condition, from arthritis to diabetes to cancer. When the body is inflamed, it is like a fire smoldering beneath the surface, weakening tissues and organs little by little. Yet omega-3 fatty acids, as well as the minerals and antioxidants found in protective fish, have been proven to put out that fire. Seniors who eat these fish regularly show lower levels of inflammatory markers in their blood. This translates into less joint pain, greater mobility, and a reduced risk of chronic disease. The science confirms what many seniors experience firsthand: when you eat the right fish, you simply feel lighter, freer, less weighed down by the burdens of age. There is another dimension here: circulation. Blood flow is life. Every cell, every organ, every thought depends on oxygen carried through the blood. Science has shown that the nutrients in salmon and trout, in particular, improve endothelial function, that is, the ability of blood vessels to expand and contract smoothly. For seniors, this is critical. Healthy circulation means fewer dizzy spells, fewer risks of clotting, and greater stamina. It is the difference between being able to take that long walk with your grandchildren and sitting out because of fatigue. Once again, the science is not abstract, It is lived reality. Now consider longevity itself. In large population studies, seniors who consume fish regularly live longer, healthier lives than those who do not. But longevity here is not just about counting years, it is about the quality of those years. Research shows better mobility, sharper thinking, and greater independence among those who make protective fish part of their diet. This is science affirming what we intuitively know, that the food we eat shapes the way we age, moment by moment, cell by cell. But beyond the data, there is a philosophical truth worth reflecting on. Science can measure triglycerides, it can chart memory tests, it can record blood flow. But what it cannot fully measure is the dignity of a life lived with clarity, the joy of a mind that remembers, the freedom of a body that moves without pain. These are the gifts the right fish offer us. And when science and philosophy align, when data and lived experience point in the same direction, the message becomes undeniable. So let us know